Hello, everyone on the Campfire Project. It's Helen Glover here. I'm actually honoured completely to host this event tonight. We are talking about what we want in the bedroom. So I have some amazing campers here with me who are very popular in our group, as we know. I've got the enigma with the huge heart here, Lisa Jayne. Thanks, Lisa, for joining us on the subject. I've also got Omji with us. Omji runs an online ashram and he's an amazing, amazing practitioner of Kundalini. So he's into all that, and so am I. Scott, we all know Scott. He's our resident fabulous person. So hi, Scott. Welcome to this evening's back up on your amazing interview last week. So who's going to start us off with what do we want in the bedroom?
I'll go. So, no, I'm in. That's all right. I'll take it. What do we want in the bedroom? You know, and it's funny because it's something for me that's changed a lot over the years. As I grow as a person, I want more connection. I want a different scenario. And, you know, inside my gorgeous marriage, you know, it's something that's changing and evolving. And it's something that I'm having more trouble dealing with these days because I want more intimacy, whereas before I didn't. So I think as a person, as you grow, that becomes much more important. Something that happened the other night that I truly just melted my heart. I was lying in bed and my wife rolled over and just put her arm on me, put her hand on my arm. And wow, it was as simple as that. Didn't lead anywhere. I just enjoyed just that touch. So I'm looking forward to getting into this conversation. As much as I'm going to have input, I'm going to learn too.
So what's your thoughts, Omji?
Do I have to go next? I've actually been through the ringer in regards to this specific subject. What do I want in the bedroom? I have actually been to hell and back. The first thing I realised is a few years ago someone said, "What do you want, Omji?" And I actually couldn't answer it because I'm quite a sensitive person that actually quite often, like, there's a whole lot of influences in this. My dad's a pleasing person and he's not really empowered as a man, but sometimes he leads from behind. So I have absorbed his energy in my life. So I predominantly fall into a very sensitive, soft man energy. But when someone said, "What did I want?" I realized that I didn't even know. And then the first thing that I realized was what I don't want. And then from the position of knowing what I didn't want, I could work out what I wanted. And it's like, as a late 40s male, it's a bizarre concept. And like Scott said, but in one line, I want my partner to be fulfilled. That's what I want in the bedroom. How do I go about that? Well, it depends what partner I'm with. But hopefully I've got a partner that's suitable and conducive to my own energy. And then in that, well, it's actually funny because I've done a fair bit of work in this sacred sexuality arena. And it also comes under the idea of neo-tantra and things like that.
We've lost your audio. We lost your audio.
No, you have to mime. Oops.
Can't hear you.
It's because we're about to get to the good bit.
Yeah, that always happens, doesn't it? Let's see.
He's gone out. You can fill in now, Lisa Jayne. What's your thoughts?
So, well, I was thinking about this because I've had a few different experiences with long-term relationships as well. And at the moment, I'm completely free to decide what I'd like in the bedroom. And that's also actually been very interesting because it allows you to probably be anything you want, which is sometimes very different to what you are in the outside world. But what I've noticed is that I think so much of it has to do with the ability of people to get into their hearts, because the more emotionally, for me, it's an emotional intimacy that happens. So if somebody's in their head, the whole experience is very different to if you're actually in your heart. And that sometimes is that building of connection and that building of sharing parts of myself only with that person and coming into a really deep, intimately safe sharing space, which then allows, it's almost like what I've discovered, it's almost like there are other levels of me operating in lovemaking that happen when I open up all those realms of myself. So it just seems to take on so many more different dimensions. And I love that, but that's also something that might be difficult to find, because not only with the person that you might be with, but that person has to have done enough work on themselves and to have created a really emotionally intimate relationship to be able to do that. So definitely it's something that can always get better though. And I think absolute freedom needs to be pretty important and up there too, like freedom to be yourself and express what you want to express.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? You know, we've got Rose agrees here about the emotion and the heart. She says it's very important. Absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? You know, as we grow, our sexual experience as we go into our sexuality is so limited, and it's shared with people who are also limited. And then, of course, at the moment now, there's pornography, there's all these different images. And so it's really interesting, isn't it, where our actual education comes from. And at some point, you have to make a decision, I think, to take on your own education in this space. And in that, then, to actually open to the uncomfortableness of this conversation. And I think that's why
we used to have the sealed section in Clio, and like I remember as a teenager, you'd always buy the magazines with the sealed section, and they would be like, you know, 5 steps to a head job, and like this is what they printed in the sealed section. You know, teenage girls are like, oh, wow, you know, and like then you have to go. Oh, actually, I wouldn't say that, but you know, like it's just so interesting. And I don't actually, I mean, now it's so much more explicit. You can watch porn, you can watch stuff anywhere, but back then that was what we got. And I don't know, maybe it was a little bit more real, maybe it wasn't, I don't know. But
yeah, and I remember back then, back in the day, as they say, but it was all very much centered about what women could do for men, you know, how we could keep a man and what we had to do in the bedroom to keep a man. And so I think that is also changing the dynamic there as well, that as we are coming more into kind of being more empowered in our sexuality, we're also saying, well, hang on a minute, what about me in this section? But what does that then mean for guys? And this is for you too, Scott and me. Like, if this is how far we've come, at what point did then guys start going, oh, okay, I know exactly how to treat a woman's body. I know what women want. I mean, how do you find that information out as a guy when really the concentration was on kind of the woman keeping the man and the man just kind of wanting a good shag? But then as you get older, you want the more intimacy, you want more connection. And how do you actually put that into a sexual experience where you know what you're doing?
Yeah, brilliant. Look, I'll jump in. I feel I cheated a little bit at the start because I wanted to warm myself into it, because this is actually an uncomfortable subject for me. It's something that I don't actually fully embrace inside mine. I'm still learning how to achieve that. And being that I have grown immensely myself emotionally, I'm dying for that emotional connection in the bedroom. That's what I want. and my partner and I are at two different stages at the moment, and you know, it's a work in progress, because I've gone from growing up with the boys, you know, drinking, shagging, no respect whatsoever for a woman, whereas now I see women in a very, very different light. I have the utmost respect for women, even to the point where, you know, like it's when Marcella was pregnant, I wouldn't shag her because I wouldn't go near her because I was really scared. I was genuinely worried about what I would do to a woman and how I'd go about it.
Because most women are really freaking horny when they're pregnant.
Yeah. And I know that now. But at the time, I didn't have the guidance of the people around me to talk about those scenarios. You know, and that's why I'm so passionate now about actually talking about this. What do we want in the bedroom? How can we make things better and stronger and get the connection? Because that's the one thing I think I've really failed at, is not loving my wife enough. And now I'm having to make up ground because I didn't appreciate her enough. And I don't want my son to come up into a world that he can't do that and have that connection and have that. Like I look at my wife now, you know, and I put my hand on the C-section, and it took me a long time to learn how to look at that with appreciation and just absolute love. I now want what I should have done back then, and it hurts because I want that connection. I want to be. You know,
but where you have to know that you're doing it now. There's a point we can't repair the past, really.
Absolutely.
You have to really just look at. I mean, you're still young, Scott. And that you are doing this growth, you are still learning, and you are having these conversations, you know. So I think there's got to be a point where you kind of go, you know, here I am really, really doing this. And you know, you're the person who spoke to me about holding this conversation, right? So,
yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, so where do you think then that you learn how to do it better? Where could you?
Well, that's changed since, and like I know I promote the Campfire in bits and pieces, but I'm learning from having people around me that I can trust to have conversations. Last week, I learned so much about women. For Christ's sake, I didn't even know that, you know, when you put a tampon in and go past wherever we go past, I'm not quite sure, but within the depth, you don't feel it. I didn't know that. So, and I'm just one bloke trying to learn. So how many other guys don't know that? You know, and it's about understanding each other, understanding, like it's a two-way street, and you got to be open and learn together, and that's what I want now. I want to learn together. I want to fumble and have a safe place to fail. But because there's been, you know, I've been married for 16 years now, and I've got a big history of what has been okay, and I want to change that. So that's another learning step and another progression that I have to take on myself to try and navigate, you know. So having conversations like this for me are everything. And that's why I'm so happy to sit in here, and put my hand up and say, listen, I don't quite know yet. I'm still learning. I still want to be a part of things. You know, it's gone to the days where drug and alcohol fuels sex and all that sort of scenarios. Like, that's great fun in the day. But now I really want to respect my wife, and I really want to, and I want to be respected. I want to be touched with that love. I want to share that commitment and communication and magic, you know. So yeah, I'm just making sure that's not a text from Marcella.
Because you've done a lot of work in this area, so I'm really interested to hear about your take on this, because there has been so much education there for you.
Yeah, I've looked into it pretty deeply, because I previously liked the idea of, I knew I was doing it, but I was feeling a void in my own self-worth by having sex. And even though it passed time and it was okay during the experience, it was just empty. So then I set upon a path where I went into community and got into, like, I had a relationship, and she encouraged me into this sacred sexuality path. And like, you can, like, anyone that's interested in this Campfire project, like, I've got 51 videos on my YouTube channel on a playlist of me going through the process of this sacred sexuality, trying to re-educate myself and retrain my nervous system. you know. So there's some really raw videos there in regards to what I was going through psychologically and emotionally, because what I just said has to happen. There needs to be a re-education first of all.
Yes.
And then there needs to be, it's so hard. It's the most difficult thing that I've ever done in regards to facing myself and looking at my own patterns. And I'm still not there, but I'm a part of a group, and I found, like, I'm pretty choosy. You can not, like, if you want to be a bit like what I did, like I'm a bit of a freegan, and I'm as tight as a fish's ass with my money. So I source out these people that do 20-minute free calls to do with their promoting their business, if it's sacred sexuality. And I must have spoken to about 20 of these people for 20 minutes or more, and it's all aligned with the same thing at the end of the day. I've picked one mentor now who's a part of a collective called Tribe Men's Community on Facebook and through Patreon. And it was the best move I've ever done, because it's a month, they have one call a week, and it's a part of a men's community that's based around sacred sexuality, business, empowerment, and accountability. And in the retraining of my nervous system, I've actually, like, there's been stages where I've had to focus on differentiating orgasm from ejaculation, because, like, I've looked right into it, and there's been several mentors or several books that I've read about it, and the books will be okay, but a person needs to educate themselves. So for like a day, and it's not an overnight process, for 2 or 3 years, 3 or 4 times a week, I find a space where I can do what they call self-pleasure, which is an uncomfortable thing to talk about, because people think, oh, it's about wanking and stuff, but it's not to do with that. It's about feeling, settling into the body, feeling the breath. And then there's these things called scales or edging, which means that you stimulate yourself to a certain level of arousal. Like, say, on the ladder scale, you go to like a level 5 or 6 of arousal, and then you'll relax and pause, slow down through your breath and feel into your body. Go back to a level of 4, and then go up to a 7, and then come back to a 5, and then go up to an 8, and then go up to a, and then go down to a 6, and then go up to a 9, and try and stay at 9, because if you go over 9, then you pass the point of no return. And if it's me, like, I find extreme displeasure and go into my victimized subconscious familiarity pattern of not feeling enough if I can't please my woman, So I brought great pressure on myself, and fucking irony is that she says, Omji, I don't even care if we have sex. I just want to feel your skin against mine and feel close and comfortable. And I'm sitting there going, she, what? And she goes, that's where I find my fulfillment, being close to you and being intimate. It doesn't even have to be penetrative sex. And I'm sitting there going, and then that's combating all my education to do with porn, making the woman come, finding fulfillment, and then my own fulfillment through ejaculation, which has never been that massive. I've always been more focused on her orgasm than myself. But in itself, that's a neurosis. But I might be a minority of men that don't worry about me ejaculating, and don't worry. And I do worry about my agenda, because my agenda is actually her pleasure rather than my pleasure. So it's still my agenda pushed onto her.
Is that a normal thing, do you think, for men as they get older, that it's actually the quest for them to pleasure the woman and make sure egotistically that they have brought a woman to orgasm? Do you think that it is something that they think, I've kind of got to do that? Whereas when they're in the younger years, you know,
I personally haven't found any difference as I've gotten older. I've always wanted the woman's pleasure to be the focus. Not that I'm this soft, like I am a soft, sensitive person, but not that I'm this like soft, intimate person, you know, like, and just like I'm working towards that experience where I can hop into bed and be the same state of mind, no matter whether there's sexual intimacy or not, which is really difficult for me because it's like, oh, on some level I want that intimacy because there's that male thing going on because of the XY chromosome and the XX chromosome where a man wants to have sex to feel emotional and the woman wants to be emotional to have sex. So it's quite an intricate topic. And I think the re-education part,
since you've been doing like sacred sexuality, have you found that you've enjoyed sex more? Like, has it taken your pleasure to a different level?
It's taken my connection, but this is only new for me in my new relationship. In my last relationship, it was the pleasure was mainly, it wasn't close because of the pressure I put on myself and interpreted in the experience. But what it's done has sustained a connection for longer. I don't know about the pleasure's good, but I'm still struggling as a man to get in touch with my feelings. But let's say the emotional connection with the woman throughout the day is far more vast and greater and deeper, so that intimacy and the sustained intimacy is there rather than focusing on the pleasure during lovemaking. Does that answer it?
Yeah.
There's the Mantak Chia method, of course, is that you don't ejaculate. And that really, after a man gets to 50, ejaculation takes up so much energy that it's actually energy that you can use in a completely different way in your life. And that really after 60, there's only so many times that men should ejaculate in a month, like, because you shouldn't be ejaculating because it's actually taking too much life force from your body. And so they use all of those techniques of kind of getting right onto that edge and then going backwards and then right onto the edge so that there's no need to actually climax and lose the life force. And men can live for much longer and be much more able to sustain their energy in a day-to-day life and apply that to a number of different things. So it's very, very different in that way for women versus men as far as that life force energy, you know, and that's certainly something that that's talked about. Kylie's just asked here, does a man judge himself by his ability to bring a woman to climax? And that's what I was just saying before. Is that an egotistical thing, do you think? That it's kind of like, yep, I did that, tick, you know, but they succeeded because they managed that.
My self-worth is so massively different. My endorsement of my own self-worth is so different if my woman climaxes and if she doesn't. And that could be my own wound around my own victimization, familiarity, or whatever it is. But I can tell you energetically, I will sing and skip down the house hallway or whatever if I feel that I've got a woman that's well fucked or well loved.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So for me, yes.
And it's a definite winner.
It's a certain, but then it can also inhibit love as well because it brings a phenomenal amount of pressure on both the man and the woman, you know. If she doesn't even want to climax, then it can add pressure if she's trying to climax for my self-worth.
And that brings it back, doesn't it, to that part about the education, what if the actual, like, you know, if there's no real kind of love connection or the intimacy where you're actually in the same room, fully present, fully together, fully experiencing each other, and like all of it, all the senses, you know, the touch, the smell, and so when you've got somebody who's not actually doing what it is that you like, then the pressure to then have you orgasm when they're not even doing what you like. I mean, and that's where then there's the difficulty of kind of like, do we bruise ego then by saying, no, you know, this is what I really like, and the actual education of a relationship, you know, and to educate each other and be feeling really good about how that actually expands your relationship and how it deepens your intimacy, rather than it being embarrassing or, you know, something that people might feel like they're not doing it right.
I think that brings on to something that I'm not going to talk from my experience, but when, as a guy, does a man judge himself on the ability to bring a woman to climax? Yes. We want a woman to feel good so that we feel good. I know myself, if things are going great in my relationship and there's a connection, I can move mountains. You can't get in my way. When it's not going right and we haven't got that connection, I can't move a grain of sand. When it comes to being intimate, and if a guy is working hard to try and look for signals, try to understand what a woman wants, and then she tells him, no, over here, no, over here, we will generally take that as a bit of an insult. I'm like, okay, I'm getting it wrong. Okay, I go into my head, right? So it's probably easier to have us literally maneuvered, I've found myself. Instead of, as soon as I go into my head, I lose the opportunity of what it could be. And I've find, and I'd wish for more of communication after. And I know that's hard because sometimes you may not be enjoying things in bits and pieces, but it puts, just to try and change the conversation to improve, because in the moment you go into your head, you lose that connection. And for me, that's something that I've found over the years.
Do you think, I'd just like to say that, do you think that if you are completely in a situation with the person that you're with, or maybe just in a situation with yourself, so if you think about the liberation of ourself and liberating ourselves from our thinking and our need to define and try and figure out what the fuck is going on, and just work on that, even in the moment, use the moment to work on the liberation of our need to get into the figuring out of everything. Because what I have experienced is that when you're in the moment with somebody and you are both present and your hearts are open, there is no thinking, there's no pressure. You're just in the most incredible fucking space, really, literally and metaphorically. And the energy is just like, there's no, is this good enough? Is this not? There's nothing. There just is.
Yeah.
And that to me is what lovemaking is. And that I'm doing my experiments at the moment to see how and if I can create that with other people, not in a relationship. And that's going to be interesting. Because does that depend on emotional safety, or does it depend on the person's ability to know themselves? Does it depend on the person to let go of everything they think they know? What does it depend on? You know, but for me, that is the ultimate. That is the ultimate thing. And in the bedroom, because I've experienced not having that. I've experienced having a relationship that, honestly, at 33, I could have been celibate for the rest of my life. And at 38, when I discovered that it was all about being, I'm like, I can't get enough. So same person, same body, same beliefs, same upbringing. But I understood, you know, I feel like I understood the sexual, like being able to use the sexual energy, and it's such an incredible gift, and the energy that comes, it's such a giving back, and it's not there's no me or him, there's just us in this moment.
And that's a maturity, isn't it? Like it's a surrender to the experience, do you think? Because I mean, I couldn't agree with you more, and I think that's something to do with, I mean, I don't know about you, Lisa Jayne, but growing up, there was this big thing around, well, if you sleep with people, you're a slut, you know? And so there was this thing about guys being amazing for going out and shagging whoever they want, and women, you know, being all kind of coy and all very beautiful. And if somebody did sleep around, then it was talked about. And I really, really had that, to the point that I was kind of, I wanted to be sexual, and was kind of like almost wanting to hide the fact that I was going to go off in sexual relationships, and that, you know, I couldn't even own the fact that I loved it. I couldn't own it. I wasn't, because, you know, you're not allowed to, because that's just making you like just not classy or not whatever. And I think that there's a point where you become so solid in your being that you're prepared to just surrender to all of the experiences. And that's risking life, that's risking career, in love, in the bedroom. It's the surrender to all of it, isn't it? To kind of saying, well,
that would also mean that at some point you don't climax or you don't orgasm. You can still be in that beautiful space, and then sometimes different, and that's okay too. Like it's true. It's that surrendering of. And I mean, like, I'm still trying to figure this out for myself. Like, I feel blessed that I've had the opportunity to feel both experiences, and I'm still trying to figure out what the prerequisites are for my partner.
Yeah. I think as well, there's a lot to be said for dumping the stereotype of what a woman is and what a man is. Because growing up with that, well, I'm not allowed. I had to kind of let go everything I thought women should be, or what I should feel or perform like, or whatever that looked like. And I had to just go into that space fully as me. And because that's the person they've decided to have sex with, right? So, you know, that's what they're going to get.
But isn't it, it's interesting what you said about a woman, and how, because I remember my thing growing up, like I was having sex as a teenager for the wrong reasons, to get love and to be loved, which I think is probably a bit of a phenomenon with women. But I remember when I met my last partner, he refused to have sex with me when I came from the place of wanting to have sex in order to get validated and feel worthy. So he was actually intuitive enough to pick up that I was actually wanting to have sex so that I could just make sure that he still loved me. And when he actually pointed that out to me, I was just like, holy shit, that's so true, you know? And like, for him to just start our relationship like that, I mean, it just was such a blessing for me, because then I was really very, very, what's the word, honest about my motives. And I was inquiring into myself, you know, why am I here? What am I doing? And so there was so much growth for me in that, and letting go of these old behaviors that I hadn't even noticed were going on under the surface with a lot of the behaviors that I had.
Yeah. And what do you think, Scott and Omji, what do you think about when you are finding a woman attractive in this way? What is it that you are wanting from that woman in the bedroom? Are you wanting somebody who is a certain, you know, they say you have a certain type? Or what do you think about like women's weight? What do you think about what women wear? What do you think about how women appear? You know, there's this kind of stereotype of the shy kind of like retiring woman who's the you know, lion in the bedroom or something like that, and all of these, you know, behind the door, and And I've heard, because I have lots of conversations with men, so I'm just being open now about some of the things that guys have said to me about their fantasies. Oh, you want that quiet one in the corner of the club because you know when you get her home she's going to go nuts, you know. And I'm like, really? Do you know that? Do you really? And, so I'm interested to have that conversation here to say, is there in your mind this kind of image of what you're looking for, and what effect does that have on you?
Okay. All right. Well, it's really interesting because I'm going back through my life and watching the way in which I've changed, because as a young bloke, it was always about numbers. It's about how many women you could shag. It's not about the connection or it was like, I started shagging when I was 12. The first time I had sex was when I was 12. So there wasn't a lot of connection involved in it for most of my life. Like, it's always just been about getting it done and racking up numbers, which is, I think, a massive, massive shame. Whereas now I'm sort of, so I'm going to, I got stuck in that. Can you ask the question again, please, so I can get that right?
There's something that there's like a, you know, because I suppose in all of the magazines, they're a prerequisite. Is that thing that you're looking for something true, or is it just about the connection? Is it about the love? Is it about the chemistry?
Yeah, well, yeah, great, cool. Sorry, thank you. Because I was numbers, and then I didn't care about what people look like. I'd just end up where I ended up. You know, as long as I had a golden rule that if they fitted in between my arms, so I can touch my elbows, that'll be fine. I'd go home with them. But I spent a lot of my years earlier in a bad way in my head. Whereas I look at Marcella, and I'll never forget this woman that I was on a plane and coming home from Tassie. She was dressed in pants, beautiful wind sheeter, short hair, just stunning. And to me, it was the way she carried herself. She just was so confident in herself and knew her so well. So my fantasy became, if she can know herself and carry herself like that so well, how gorgeous is it going to be getting to know her, getting to know that confidence and sharing that trust in self that I can be, and just be with that. Because that's the beautiful part for me, when there's a confidence in connection that you can just be. There's that trust. For me, that's so much more than the physical side of it. The physical side is just engagement on that trust. So does that answer your question correctly?
Yeah, I mean, for each person it's unique, isn't it? So there's no right answer. It just is. What do you think, Omji?
Can I go back one page with the story? Like
sure.
In regards to the communication part? No, I don't think that we have communication down pat in regards to saying it and how it's going to be interpreted. So that's a very important part. Like, I'm sure I've been around a woman or two that's had very good things or appropriate things to communicate, but maybe they weren't communicated in a healthy way, or one that was respectful of how that communication had landed. And it's also to do with how the person receives the communication too. Like, there's two ways to communication, isn't there? There's what is being said and how I'm saying it, and how that person's receiving it. So that needs to be considered. And it's like, most men are ultra sensitive because most men want to please their woman. So the communication needs to be soft, and like, you can't use male communication in regards to communicating your needs as a, you know, male's bullet point, direct, boom, boom, boom. It needs to be sort of soft and allowing, or something like that. I don't know. I've just found that it's all good to say that you communicate what you want, but how it's communicated is more important. So
here's a question on that. Just a second then. If that is the case, do we communicate in the moment, or do you communicate about it after the fact?
Oh, it depends on how uncomfortable you are at the time, I think. You know, if it's hurting or if it's disrespectful or you're not feeling connected, then that you're allowed to stop. You know, the saddest thing about our country or our culture is that most women have been sexually abused. Even the ones that haven't been traditionally sexually abused, they've found themselves in a situation where it's easier to have sex than say no. And that in itself is abuse. But if we were educated in the right way, then you could say, the woman could say, I don't feel comfortable here. And the man would go, okay, that's cool. You know, so where does the line get drawn into when you can communicate and when you can't? I think it.
But what about if it's kind of like, no, you're just touching me in the wrong space, or that's just, I just want you to do this or to do that, or there's more, there's kind of like the expansion of your sex life.
Yeah, I think what Scott said is pretty relevant.
In the moment, or do you speak about that?
To be guided in the moment, like, but I don't know, it's such a touchy subject because both people can lose connection like that, can't they? But if the woman's not feeling connection,
then... Like, isn't that great foreplay when you're talking about what you like and what you don't like actually beforehand? Like, that builds a chemistry.
I think it's really relevant and beautiful to be up, and then it comes into, it's a touchy subject for me because I come from a place of not being enough. So if I'm being communicated with in a way that implies that subconsciously, then it's like, oh, fuck. And then I withdraw and get rejected and feel totally different about the situation. Whereas in reality, if I knew how to receive the communication, then I'd be like, oh, that's okay. Oh, thanks for letting me know. Oh, yeah. How's this then? You know? So there's a can of worms, this one is.
Is there I mean, obviously, there's not always the same kind of sex, and it's not always the same kind of length of time or the same speed so there's all these different ways that we can experience sex with our partner. It doesn't always have to be this kind of like beautiful, connective, slow, ongoing, lengthy, you know. What do you think about that? It can be equally erotic.
I think it's beautiful. Yeah, I think just to answer the other question in between, I like the attitude rather than anything specifically like body types and all that, you know. Like people say, what's the most beautiful part of the woman? My answer is always the attitude. Yeah. What do I think about the speed and things like that? I think that my mentor, there's a guy, my mentor isn't David Data, but my mentor worked for David Data for 7 years. And he's profound. He runs a group called the Yoga of Intimacy on Facebook. And he talks about this inner pillar. He's done a lot of work with his partner. And his name is Justin Patrick Pearce. And I love him. Like, I only follow one person, and that's him. Because I've tested all of them, and he's the only one that passed to the extent that I wanted. But he talks about this inner pillar. And he says there's 3 spots in your body that maintain the functionality around the dynamic of a relationship. The first one is up here, and it's to do with presence. And like, it's really good if you, being a man, can talk to a woman about things, whether it's logistics or obligations or any subject you want. It's the head stuff that talks about anything, and at the end of the sentence or the end of the paragraph, you're still on the same subject as what you started on. So presence is really important in the bedroom from the man's perspective, to be able to stay focused and just concentrate on the woman for an extended period of time. Yeah? And it's got many roles in your relationship, but presence is very important. The other one is the emotional resonance that happens in your heart, which is to do with feelings and connection. And like, say, if the woman's expressing herself, or let's say, it doesn't matter whether it's the woman or the man expressing themselves, then emotionally there's an interaction and exchange of heart energy where you can feel that energy and connection and relatability on an emotional level. He said to me once, I said, oh, mate, I've started dating this woman and I've been put in the friend zone. He said, yeah, you want to know why, Omji? I said, oh, okay, if you must. He said, because you're a beautiful man with this beautiful heart, right? And I've gone, oh, really? I try and hide it from everyone. He said, I've got you covered, mate, and I can see how much love you give. So you got this beautiful heart. You got this cracking mind that's so intense, it just boom, 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 boom. He said, but the women, if they really want polarity, right, there's something in a body that's going to create polarity. And sometimes, like, let's do this practice. And he goes, and I go, okay. And he goes, all right. But he goes, keep in mind, she'll keep friends with you. A lot of women have these emotional connections, right? But there's this guy down the street who's got this hard body, this hard attitude, and this hard cock. And he doesn't give a fuck about anyone, right? But somehow that polarity of his body creates this sexual tension and energy in a woman. He said, if you can connect your heart and mind, your heart, and your pelvis, then you've got the fullness of this pillar to be able to function through. But you need to breathe energy into your pelvis and hold it there and be able to have this hard energy that's the guy down the street has, but he doesn't have the heart or the mind. Yeah. So when you're talking about in the bedroom, if you can create polarity, which is an ongoing challenge for even him, and he's been in a relationship, he runs the show, he's been in a relationship for 10 years, and he's always telling me that polarity is sometimes easy if you have a sexual connection. The emotional connection's hard, but to maintain a polarity around obligations and logistics in your life is very difficult. But once you get the polarity happening, he says there's the masculine and the feminine. One's this energy that holds the space, and one's this energy that's flowing and expressive and fills up the moment. And one, if you can hold the space for that feminine energy, then you can hold it long enough for it to feel safe enough, to feel secure enough, to feel like it can trust you, then it'll open up. And then you can penetrate it with your masculinity and bring it home to God and the unity of all being, where you lose yourself. So the polarity is big, but me being a soft, sensitive male, I also like it in the bedroom if my woman embodies the masculine and I surrender. So it's not always the male coming to the female to penetrate her and go, I'm going to fuck you to God, baby. It's like this play of energy that's like a scale of a musical instrument that needs to be celebrated and coordinated by the couple. And it happens in heterosexual and homosexual couples alike, the energy polarity. Yeah. But I like a strong woman at times. What I struggle with is breathing into my pelvis and being that strong, dominant man, because it's not in my constitution, but I do crave it, you know. So the polarity is something to work on constantly, and to step into that strength and that presence and hold the energy, and then have no shame around fucking pounding my woman if she wants to be pounded, and then bringing it back to a soft, loving embrace. Then, you know, there's such an interplay of the dynamics of the human paradox there that's just beautiful. And that's the education I'm talking about.
And that is that, and it goes back to that masculine feminine balance. And for each person, that is completely different, which is why we're attracted to different people, isn't it? You know, I mean, there is that kind of total kind of you know, the meeting of the minds, and it's also the meeting of the energies, isn't it? You know, so
I agree totally.
About that, Jayne?
Well, I was just wondering. I don't have an answer for this at all, but I was thinking. I wonder if a human being does, like, it becomes self-actualized. So the male and the female are balanced within the whole, and you have two whole people. How does the polarity of energies work? And is it necessary? Is the polarity of energies only necessary when you're still in duality? But when you step outside of duality, is that a different story? I don't know. They're just my thoughts, because I was listening to that and I was thinking, I wonder how that fits into that, like, or does it not fit in?
Yeah, yeah.
It's still always going to be, because we're in a human body, is there still always going to be this? That were my thoughts.
I'm going to be really interested to see the replay, because when Andy was talking about, it was like a dance between masculine and feminine energy, and the smile I felt, because that's what I long for, that ebb and flow of, you know, learning each other, understanding each other, and just coming together. And but I wouldn't know that if I wasn't learning more about myself. And I'm wondering how much this conversation is going to help younger generations. Like, it's only the start of a conversation, you know, like there's so much more that can be talked about inside this, and so much to learn from it. But if we knew all of what we knew now when we were 20, would we have that deeper communication? Would we be striving for that? If we had more confidence and clarity to ask each other what we wanted, and how do you want that, and how can we get more connected? I want to understand you. Because for me, it sort of seems to be that we just want to understand each other a bit further.
But this is what the question came about for, I think, is that, like, what I was saying when I spoke to Scott about this question earlier in the week is, what do we want in the bedroom? And are we really that dissimilar? Because that's the interesting part, isn't it? As man and women, are we coming into the bedroom wanting completely different things? Which is the narrative, and which is the kind of stereotype? Man's coming in, you know, wanting to just be this guy who's just going to put the notch on the belt or whatever, and the woman's coming in to just be all loved up, and, you know, whereas I don't think that that's necessarily the case. I think that both men and women, for my mind, and my belief is that we're coming to be cared about and to be held and to be in that experience, whether it is we both know what we're here for, and there's not much love going on here, we're just going to enjoy the hell out of this situation, which means you can both come in with that energy, and then you can both come in with the energy of connection and love and being. So really, the masculine feminine interplay in a bedroom setting, it can actually be coming from the very same place that we do really want similar things. But of course, our gender is a different action and a different play in that scenario. But the reason for being there and the actual, you know, outcome and what we receive, are they really that different?
I don't think so. And after last week, I think last week was great for me. It was a great education on what it is that a woman really wants, because I think and it'll be a question to you in a second, Helen, because I think as we get older, we start to understand more, we start to really want that connection. Like, when did you discover that the connection was more a part of this, or is that a part of your world?
I think we don't need everything when we're younger. I think we need to fuck around. I think we need to mess up. I think we need to struggle. I think we need to feel a bit used every now and again to kind of really bring us into, well, what do I even do that for? Or, well, how do I want to feel? Like, as we know, all of our learning, all of our ability to have wisdom in any space that we're in comes from our mishaps, from the times where we felt like we just wanted to try the next day, you know? So really, it's the reflection of where we've been that gives us the richness as we grow. And sure enough, we're looking at ourselves now in our 40s. When we're in our 60s, we'll be like, remember when we said that? Idiot. You know, like, still don't know anything. You know,
I'm putting a note in my diary for that. When we're getting into our 60s, we're going to sit down and have the same conversation.
So, you know, I mean, really, there's no knowing anyway, because my truth is completely different to somebody else's truth anyway. So, but I really don't think we need to put the pressure on young people to know stuff. I think that
it would be nice to have a bit more education around like sacred sexuality and intimacy and what sexuality could be, because I think that is really lacking. I think there's no knowledge of even what is the potential or the possibility for two human beings coming together in that space. Like, we're not taught that as teenagers. And so it's like, if you don't know what you don't know. If you're never told that your body is a gift and that, you know, it has incredible value when you honor it and you put it in those situations, like if you're never told that, then you would never even use it like that, you know? So I don't know. Like, I think I agree with you. I think we do learn from our mishaps. And I love the way you said that, Helen. I thought that was really beautiful. I also think, though, like, hey, how cool would it be if our high schools had, like, Sexuality 101 and we talked about sacred sexuality? It's like, this is about using sex to learn about yourself and to actually, these are the potentials for union, you know, in a body.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. And the thing is as well, because I've done a lot of work around tantric stuff and I think that this is what you were alluding to before as well, that you come from that space as well, and there's still, then often there can be the disappointment that the other person's not where you are. So there's still that kind of pain or hurt or kind of disappointment, or, you know, even from when you do know. So the more people who come to the table with more knowledge, you know, the more kind of those experiences are going to be less as well, you know. So yeah, I'm all for that, definitely. Yeah.
So I'm just going to throw this up there because let's throw a bit of lightheartedness onto this too. When you get to your 60s, you won't remember what you did yesterday. Trust Ellen. So, what is that like?
So we're coming to the end of this conversation, I think. So if we can kind of have a sentence each where we can kind of nutshell this up, what do we want to say?
Can I just have a second before that?
Sure you can.
Because I'm in a situation where I've got like 6 children every second weekend now. And
that's really bad for sex life, Omji.
Yeah, at least we have every second weekend to ourselves. It hasn't been too bad though. It's the start of a relationship. But anyway, one daughter's 11, one daughter's 12, and my son's 13. So they're in very interesting times. I said to my son the other day, trying to talk to him a bit sideways rather than too directly, I said, son, you're coming to a point where you're going to want to put your penis in women or girls. And I know that most of your mates are going to be educated with porn. And you'll be going, Dad, we don't need to talk about this. And on some level, you're one of the lucky ones, because I am one of the dads that want to talk about it. And one day I said to him, in the words of Gordon Ramsay, and he came out with, "You're a fucking donkey." And I said, no, that's not the line that I was thinking of. I said, Gordon Ramsay once said, make love to it, don't fuck it. Right? Yeah. And I said, you're going to be educated by watching this stupid shit called porn. Don't get me wrong, I've been there, son, and I've been educated with it too. But there's a difference between this and this. I said, you being a soft-sensitive boy who's growing into a man, you want to worry about this. You don't want to have the goal of putting your penis in someone and thinking that's what it's all about. You want to make putting the penis in the person the least priority. You want to hold them close and touch them and feel the experience. He said, yeah, sure, Dad. I said, no worries, son. So I think education, I said, no one ever talked to me about this. You know, I think education's got its place, but how do we get into the curriculum, or an opportunity to get into the areas to be able to educate the people in these areas? You know, I don't know, but I think education certainly a profound experience.
As a parent of a 13-year-old, I think for me, because I had a bit of a dilemma around what my daughter was being exposed to on social media and seeing how it was impacting her self-esteem. And I thought, how do I even address this? Because you can't stop it, you know. And I just thought, I have to use this to empower her. I have to use everything that's happening to empower her. And so it was the conversations that I had around, this is what's happened to some girls that have done this on the net. And I've showed her graphically, and I probably never would have done it at that age normally, but I was very graphic in the description of where things could lead and how it could be different if you actually thought about what it is you have to give and how you can learn from this. So I actually used it to empower her. And I actually felt like this is the only choice I have, because I can't stop it and I can't ignore it, you know. And I think actually that comes back to when you said, how would you like to wrap this up? What's your one word? So my words would be, use everything to learn. It's not about whether or not you're doing it right or wrong. It's about the opportunity in that moment to learn about yourself more. So use everything as an opportunity to see who you really are and ride it as hard as you can.
I have to comment about that actually, because I've had that conversation with my daughter where I've said, you know, like, don't feel bad about your sexuality. Don't be made to feel like, one, you have to, or two, you know, that you can't as well, with that whole thing of you can't sleep with too many men, or that you have to sleep with men. You actually honor yourself for all moments of this process, because it's about the honoring of your own gift and your own sexuality and your own essence that you're bringing forward, and that, you know, you're going to enjoy it, you know, and, you know, don't worry. Just know that this is actually something special and beautiful and amazing. Don't carry any of the shame around it. Don't carry any of the pressure around it. Know that it actually just is all yours. And so wherever that leads you, the decisions that you make around that have to be as solid as the decision that you would make about anything else, about where you want to work, about what you want to really do with your life, about who you want around you as friends. It's a really solid, just part of who you are.
Yeah. You are.
She's frozen.
Yeah, she's frozen. But I think that's really true, because I've seen that work.
Just like anything else, you treat it with.
It was the good bit.
I know. I cut off. I know. But it's interesting because I've actually seen that work, and I think, because I've done that with my older daughter, and my advice to her was exactly what Helen has said, which has given her a lot of freedom in learning about relationships and how she wants to show up in relationships. But also, she's had a lot of fun. I mean, God, when you've got a young, beautiful body, I mean, why wouldn't you want to have fun in it? My advice, though, was like, just do it for the right reasons, you know, like always make sure if you're going to go and have fun, you do it for the right reasons. And, you know, I remember her telling me a story when she was in this situation, and she felt confident enough to go, you know what, actually, this doesn't feel right. And she just railed. And I'm like, I'm so proud of you, because a lot of women would have got to that point and gone, oh, I probably should just keep going. And I'm like, she's like, no, I bowed. And I'm like, yeah, you go, girl.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like any other part of your life. You own it. You know? What do you think, Scott?
I just want people to have enough respect for one another and to realize that they themselves are the gift. You know, you're a gift to the other person you're going to be sharing experience with.
Mm-hmm.
Treat it like that. You treat gifts well. You respect gifts. You want to make sure that, you know, when you get a gift, it's a surprise. Open it carefully, enjoy it. You know, sometimes you got to rip them open, but just respect it. You know, and that's mainly because of maybe my experiences, but I really want Oscar to respect the woman and just adore her, because when that's when you can get that real, I don't know. For me, love is something that we need to give, and I think if we give it in every experience, then we're all going to be better off. So, yeah. Sorry, Helen, you missed.
No, I could hear you, darling. I just froze myself, so that's no drama.
No.
What do you think, Omji?
So, what do we want in the bedroom? Is it basically the same? Are they aligned? I think it's yes, the answer is. And what we want, not that I can speak for anyone else, but from my understanding, I think that we want healthy validation of our own selves. We want a sense of belonging. And I think that this can happen through compatibility and clear, conscious communication, whilst respecting ourselves and having fun, because the human condition can be so much fun. But if it comes with strong boundaries and self-respect, then it comes with a few less regrets. Yeah. Thank you for having me on this panel tonight. I'm so honoured.
Oh, it's been so special to have this conversation with you. I'm so grateful. And I think for me, I really believe that once we really key into our core person, then it's so much more available for us to share with the person we're with. And so then we can open ourselves, trusting who we are. And so we can trust ourselves in this space. And therefore, the other person constantly that gets just the energy of permission to be fully present in the same way. Mm-hmm. And then it's actually up to that other person to choose that. You can only ever, as we always say, you can only ever come with whatever you've got to offer. So, but yeah, just enjoy, right? Just offer that best part of yourself with the connective heart. And then, you know, when it's received, happy days. And, you know, you win some, you lose some.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's right. You know, we want to be seen. We want to be cared about. We want to be loved. And in the bedroom's no different to any other time.
From a male perspective, I think that eliminating pressure is a phenomenal thing. Yeah, I've had an experience in a relationship where there was so much pressure that, like, I was experiencing like premature ejaculation, and then I get in a relationship where the woman says, "I don't care whether you come or you don't," and then all of a sudden the pressure's off, and I've never had that experience with her, and I'm thinking, what's going on here? And it was all to do with some inbuilt pressure to do with perpetuating some not enough story. Or as soon as I was accepted and encouraged, my whole experience in the bedroom changed phenomenally. I'm going, oh, okay. So,
and that's led by confidence, isn't it? You know, that's by confidence.
That was the big thing I got out of last week was, you know, when a man holds his confidence and embraces a woman with confidence, that was something that all 5 women were talking about it. When I watched it, their eyes were like, yes, that's the confident man, you know. So it's about how can he, and that's a tough balance between breaking the confidence and, you know, keeping him strong, because And that's one of the things we were talking about earlier, that sort of Omji lands on, like, in the moment, to be guided rather than told makes a big difference to a bloke, because it's confidence. So, but look, yeah, sorry. But I think for me, the best part about everything that we do on here, it's always the start of a conversation. You know, like, this can be taken so much further and we can learn so much more. But that comes when other people get involved in the conversations as well, because that's where we learn more and more and more. You know, you learn from each other's experiences, and that's where I think the strength is.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so amazing that we get to have these conversations in a safe space like this. And so, yeah, honor.
Well, how often have you had them? How often have you had conversations like this in a safe place?
Well, I have.
Okay, so women do this sort of thing quite a lot, actually. A couple of women get together and we talk about this sort of stuff all the time.
Just
maybe there's the opportunity.
We're on Facebook Live generally.
Tell everyone. Just tell you.
So thank you so much, everyone. We're a little bit over, but that's because it was such a juicy subject. And yeah.
Thank you, Helen.
See you next time.
Thank you, Helen.
Thanks. Bye. All the love.
Ciao.
Bye.